Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening. Tonight, the date is June 15th, and tonight we've got a very special, I think, presentation. As I've mentioned in the past, we take turns on who's going to say the prayer and pledge for that month or conduct it. And those of you that watched our council meeting last time, we had a very special group that was sitting in the audience, which was some very young scouts from Troop 27G. And I offered them to come back and help us tonight, and they are here. So with that, I am going to go ahead and proceed with the posting of the colors first. Now, keep in mind, we can change this up a little bit, but I want to acknowledge that the troop leader is Kimber Talbot. The troop members is Preston Talbot, Kara Talbot, Kinsley Talbot, excuse me, I already said that, Lincoln Talbot, and Carolyn Young tonight. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn the time over to this young troop to post our colors. So those in the audience, if you would please follow their instructions. So I'll let them turn the time over to them.
Color guard attention. Will the audience please rise? Color guard forward march. Please make a proper hand salute. Color guard halt. Post the colors. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. The audience, color guard, reform your ranks. The audience may be seated.
That was very impressive, and thank you very much. I'd now like to turn the time over to Kinsley, who is going to give us our invocation.
Please prepare yourself in the manner which you are accustomed to. Our dear Heavenly Father, please bless that we all can have a wonderful time here, and that we will find some solutions to some problems, and that we'll all have a good time, and we say these things in Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. That is very good. And if you kids want to stay through the whole meeting like you did last time, you're more than welcome. If not, you can also excuse yourself. But I do appreciate you coming back and sharing your patriotism with us here this evening, because that just bodes well and gives us great confidence in our future. Looks like Councilmember Thomas wants to say something.
It was mentioned to me by somebody sitting next to me that after doing the flag, you're supposed to go get ice cream.
And you're buying? Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate that. Okay, I failed to mention, and I do want to make sure that those of you that are watching that we do have a full quorum here tonight, and online we have council members Bettina Smith Edmondson, who is actually attending a conference on behalf of the city, but she has dialed in and is part of tonight's meeting as well. So with that, council, I'm going to turn the time over and see if anybody has any municipal announcements.
Parks and Rec has a lot going on in the next month and a half. July is a big month coming up with starting off with Liberty Days celebration. That will kick off actually on Sunday, July 2nd, with the Voices of Liberty Patriotic Concert. And also at that concert, close that door.
Yeah. I think Alex went to go close it. Okay.
also at that concert on July 2nd, Sunday evening, we will honor our hometown heroes in Layton. And on that note, nominations is still open for one more day. Tomorrow at the close of business, we need to have those nominations in. So just looking for, residents in the city that have gone above and beyond just living in a city and really helped build a community. Nominate your neighbors, your friends, your family members, anyone that you see that would fit that role so we can give them the honor that they deserve. And then on July 4th, there's a full load of activities from 6:30 a.m. until the fireworks at 10 p.m. You can find that at laytoncity.org in the events tab. And there's also another thing you can register for is the fun run or walk, the 5K until June 30th. You can register day of, but it'll cost more. Until June 30th, it's $20 when you register, but lots of things going on. Breakfast, the Rotary, I believe, serving breakfast starting at 6:30 to 10 a.m. at the Ed Kenley Plaza outside the amphitheater. Just after that will be the flag raising ceremony, short presentation, and then the parade kicks off about 10:30. Like I said, go to laytoncity.org and find the full list of events of all the happenings.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. I know typically,
Madam Mayor, I do have.
Councilmember Smith Edmondson usually has some comments, and I'm sure she will tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge her at this time.
Thank you. I do have a few events coming up this weekend. Davis Arts Council, they have their Free Friday film series this Friday, June 16th at 7 p.m. The film will be McFarland, USA. And then on June 17th, Saturday night, there is Marty Stewart. He is going to be one of the Summer Nights with the Stars concerts. They do still have a few tickets available. And then on Sunday, the 18th, is also another free concert, and that will be the Ginger Best Band, starting at 7 p.m. So there are some free activities as well as some paid activities you can participate in this weekend to get your holiday kicked off. And then, of course, on Monday, we'll be celebrating the Juneteenth holiday, so the city offices will be closed. And that is all I have for tonight.
Okay, very good. That was good. Does anyone else have any announcements? Okay, seeing that there's no more announcements, and I don't have any verbal petitions tonight, citizens' comments. I'll turn the time over now for citizens' comments. Okay, seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and proceed down to our consent items, which we have 5 consent items to deal with tonight. And as mentioned in the past, we can actually, it's very customary or routine for us to enact on these by one single motion. But prior to that, we will go ahead and hear the information on each one of these items. We're going to start out first with item number A, and we'll be hearing from Chief Kevin Ward regarding an ordinance for the fire department. So Chief, excuse me. No, we got Doug Bitten here to present. So Doug, do you want to go ahead and give us that information?
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Bitten, Layton City Fire Marshal. Council and Mayor, before you have Ordinance 2311. This is to amend Title 16, Chapters 16.04 and Section 16.04.010 of the Layton Municipal Code to adopt the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code with amendments in Appendix L. As historically, we had the International Fire Code for many years, and the last operating year we had is the 2018 by the International Code Council. They submit and hear through a code hearing all different people throughout the world on life safety items for the fire code. And so that from there, they formulate the next 3-year formulation of the International Fire Code. And through our legislative efforts this past legislative season, they passed the 2021 International Fire Code with the state amendments. And so with that, we've formalized this through this ordinance to be able to present to you the 2021 International Code with our municipal adoption. We went through the our amendments for Layton City amendments and did some language cleanups and a few numbering changes just to follow suit for what the 2021 International Fire Code did identify. New to this year, though, we want to present to you the Appendix L. It's up to the cities to adopt appendices. The state does not. There's a whole range of appendices in all different codes and fire codes at the same format. So this Appendix L is the breathing air, the firefighter air replenishment system, or short for FARS. And what that is there's two things that firefighters need when they're combating a fire, and that is air and water. And the air is sometimes can be problematic for us. We have these called self-contained breathing apparatuses, air packs on our backs, and currently the cylinders that we have is a 45-minute bottle rated. Okay, and with that. With the arduous task of firefighters carrying hose packs and everything, that becomes depleted really fast. We have some top-notch, well-fit firefighters that extend as much as they can, but the cylinder does deplete over minutes. And so with that, we wanted to forward think this out and present through this Appendix L. This is built for especially high rises, anything above 5 floors, for high rise type of buildings, all new buildings, and also 2 floors below underground in structures. Also, this we've packaged this for big box type of buildings that are, and we have none of these right now, that are over 250,000 square feet. So it's there's again essential things. What the system does, it has a reservoir of bottles down in its lowest point of the building that is kept there ready for air for the firefighters. As the firefighters go to the fire alarm, hopefully the fire sprinkler systems is working. There's case points in history that fire sprinkler systems sometimes don't work effectively. The firefighters have to get up there quickly, especially with the smoke travel. As you well know, that our smoke nowadays is a black fire with plenty of plastics. So it's very toxic. So the firefighters need these breathing cylinders. So they're up there doing their work. And what this system does is they're up maybe on the 8th floor of a building, and they start to get their secondary alarm saying, hey, you got to get out and get another cylinder. They go to the stairways, which is protected usually in these high rises for fire rating. And also that's where our connections for the standpipes, where we connect our hose to go into the structure further with hose lines. They can now connect up to that portal that's there, and it's within minutes they have their air supply back to them. And so it's historically has been that we carry bottles up It's a labor intensive, it's time consuming, and with this we can do our operational levels much quicker and effective. And so with that, we have amended the ordinance to say that it's 5 stories above, and that's kind of the national template out there. 5 stories above for a high rise, and then 250 feet for big box buildings, and under 2 floors, these FAR systems will be in place. The overall cost usually for this is about $1 a square foot. And we also, just to maybe for my ability, maybe not to clearly communicate this, we do have a video we'd like to show you and the public that will come up on the screen. If that be all right, Mayor, Council?
Sure. I think it'd be good for our citizens to understand what you're proposing here.
With the help of our Community Economic Director, he's going to push a play button for us.
Firefighters need 2 things to fight fires: water to extinguish the flames, and air so the firefighters can survive in a toxic, smoky environment. Before buildings were equipped with water standpipes, firefighters carried water to a fire in buckets. That changed in the 1850s. But up until recently, supplying air in big buildings was still done the old-fashioned way, by hand. Firefighters had to carry replacement air bottles up numerous flights of stairs in a high-rise, or deep into large horizontal structures like warehouses and tunnels. It's a slow, labor-intensive task, taking crews away from fire attack and search and rescue operations. And when seconds matter, running out of air can be fatal. The solution? Firefighter Air Replenishment Systems, also known as FARS. FARS are a building-installed standpipe for air. With FARS, firefighters can refill their air bottles in 2 minutes or less under full respiration at fill stations located throughout a building. In a high-rise, fill stations are located in stairwells and go all the way to the roof. In a large horizontal structure, like a warehouse or a supermarket, fill stations are located throughout a building next to the water standpipes. The same is true in an underground tunnel structure, like a subway platform. The open space design of these large horizontal structures allows smoke to accumulate quickly, making visibility poor. It's easy to become lost and disoriented. With FARS, firefighters can simply follow their hose lines back to the water connection to find an air refill station. In all large structures, whether vertical or horizontal, FARS are a much faster, safer, more reliable way to resupply air and avoid the poisonous effects of smoke. Jurisdictions in 20 states now require FARS, and fire service experts are calling FARS a game changer in firefighter life safety technology. Our firefighters deserve every chance to go home to their families at the end of the day. Firefighters deserve FARS.
With that also, part of our amendments, there is some signage requirements for these systems. One of them we think is very innovative. As you know, you've helped us get this wonderful tool that we have. It's called an infrared camera for searching for victims and those that are in a building because the smoke is so thick. It'll have a border where the supply portal is for the connection to this for the firefighters. It'll have a border where that infrared camera can be able to identify it quickly. So that's another good innovative thing we have. So with this, the alternatives are to adopt ordinance 23-11, approving the amendments to Title 16, Chapter 16.04, Section 1604.010 of the Layton Municipal Code, and adopt the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code, or not to adopt the 23-11 ordinance and the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code, and remand to staff with directions. This is our recommendation as staff to adopt this ordinance 23-11, approving the amendments in Title 16, Chapter 16.04, and Section 16.04010 of the Layton Municipal Code, and adopt the 21 2021 edition of the International Fire Code as by legislative rule to be effective July 1st, 2023. This effective date is in accordance to the Utah State adopted Code 15A 5-103. Any questions that you might have, Council or Mayor, regarding our ordinance proposal?
Does anyone have any questions?
Mayor, I have one, if that's okay. So you mentioned above 5 feet, and then you mentioned not 5 feet, above 5 floors, and then you mentioned 5 floor or 5 and above. Is it 5 and above or above 5 for the floors?
It's written at 5 floors above,
So, okay.
Yeah.
And we,
starting on the 6th floor.
starting on the, and we
Would be
just,
high-rise.
we just changed, Chad, didn't we just changed an ordinance a few meetings ago for 6th floor didn't we just do that? But we don't have anything, currently, we don't have anything that tall
We
or
don't.
that large
Yes, you're right.
in the city.
You're right.
So this is forward thinking.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. It's our forward thinking. Chief Ward was one of the first instrument suggesting this. We look at this appendix. He comes from Chandler, Arizona. When he was just going out of there, they are starting to incorporate this. These systems have been around for almost 20 years. We're finally gravitating to that here in Utah. So.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We really appreciate that. We'll, I guess, take action on this once we hear all of the consent items.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is a land conveyance agreement between Layton City and Britannia K and C. Brian Arby. So Mr. Chad Wilkinson will be presenting items B, and actually he'll be presenting C and D as well. So go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. This first item, item 5B, is Resolution 2332. This is a land conveyance proposal. The land is located at approximately 128 Ellison Street. This is just a quick aerial view of what that property looks like. You can see Ellison runs along the property on the east side and also on the south side. It's a corner lot there. This is an aerial view of that property. The property that we're talking about, and I'm going to show you a little bit closer picture, but it's right here on the south side. So if you look at that aerial view, you can see that there is a parcel of land that really has functionally been part of the applicant's property for quite some time. As they were doing some work, some permitting work, they found that was not actually in their fee title for that property. So they asked the city if we would be willing to convey that to them. As the city engineering department and the planning department reviewed this request, we found that there was a good reason to convey that to them, that was not property that the city needed for that street in that area. Because of the way this property was originally conveyed, it's not a right of way in that area. It's actually a parcel that was found to be owned by the city. So this is a conveyance rather than a right of way vacation. Again, the city staff are recommending that the council convey that property through the conveyance agreement to the applicant, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions, council?
Council, could I just make a note
Sure.
that in the course of your motion, find that it's an insignificant
Thank
parcel of
you.
property as one of your findings? In other words, it's not able to be built on. It's
Used
not
for
able to be-
anything, yeah. Right.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. In your staff report, we mentioned that this is an insignificant parcel. What that means is that this is not a parcel that meets certain criteria in our city code. The main point of that being that it's not a developable parcel that somebody else could do something else with, so.
If anything, it would just cost us to maintain it. So, yeah, I get it. Okay. I don't think there's any other questions, so Chad, go ahead and proceed with the appointment of the planning commissions.
Yes, thank you. We've had one of our long-serving planning commissioners, Brett Nilsson, has reached his term limit. So he has served for 9 years on the planning commission, which is very commendable. We're going to be recognizing him at our next planning commission meeting and thanking him for his service. So I just want to make you aware of that. But in the meantime, we have, through an interview process for a couple of openings several months ago, we did have some candidates that applied. One of those candidates was, interestingly enough, Brett Nielsen, which is a different spelling, a different gentleman that has applied. And he was interviewed by our committee, just as the other recent appointees were. And we feel that he would be a great replacement for Brett to serve. So our new commissioner, Brett Nielsen, would be appointed as an alternate. We had a couple of other commissioners whose terms had ended who would like to continue to serve. They have not termed out yet, so we are also recommending that we extend the service of Scott Carter and Lindsay Hamilton. And then we would also be changing the status of Justin Whitworth from an alternate to a regular member of the Planning Commission. So with those, that's the mayor's recommendation to you, and that would be staff's recommendation as well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Did you say Brett was going to be a alternate?
Yes,
The new Brett,
the new Brett.
different
Oh, I thought
person.
that his was Brad. It's Brett.
It's
as
Brett.
well.
They're both Brett
Oh, okay,
Nielsen.
I'm
Yep,
sorry.
Yep, different
Okay.
spellings, but yes.
Did they elect their chair?
Yeah, Trevor Steenblick was elected to be the chairman on Tuesday night. The potential vice chair candidate has actually announced his resignation because his family's moving. So we will be looking to have another replacement and an election for that vice chair position very soon. So
Which that brings up the question as far as filling another position. So we want to make sure anybody who's listening is that we'll be posting that position as well, so that we'll have a new round of applicants.
next week there'll be some information on social media for anyone that would be interested in serving on the Planning Commission. There'll be an application process like we've done before. So
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I just appreciate Brett's long-term in serving the city. I mean, he's done a lot, not just with the planning commission, but throughout various departments within this city. And I know that he doesn't want any fanfare, but honestly, I appreciate his dedication and consistency in chairing this position this past couple of years. I mean, he's done a really good job, and he's going to be missed, but I told him he can't go too far.
yeah, Brett served for a long time as our chair as well. So yeah, he's done a great job.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what the mayor said, but also, he goes beyond his responsibility at the planning commission because he's in our audience a lot of the time, following through with, the actions and really vested in the city and what we're doing as well and how we take their recommendations. So thank you, Chair Brett.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and proceed then with item number D, which is the Layton Park Estates and Syracuse land investment.
I'm going to actually go to my second slide first here. This is an interesting request for a development agreement amendment, and I want to just explain a little bit of the background of this. At the time that the Layton Park Estates subdivision was annexed and first received their entitlements for development, there was an annexation development agreement adopted. As part of that, there was a cross section that was part of the development agreement that called for a wider sidewalk and a larger park strip than would be typical for our code requirements. The reason for that is that this was along a connector street that runs along the south side of Layton Park Estates that connects 1000 South to 2200 West. That used to run in a 90-degree fashion. Now it's been modified to be a connector road that runs parallel to the soon-to-be completed West Davis corridor. So when that development agreement was adopted, the concern was that it wasn't known whether the Utah Department of Transportation would include a pedestrian improvement on their side of that street, on that west side, kind of southwest side of that corridor. Since that subdivision was approved, UDOT has completed that work, and they did include a 6-foot wide sidewalk on their side of that street, and they've told us they're also going to have some additional buffering on that particular section of the street. Don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but this brought up the question from the developer team of, since we have a pedestrian connection there, can we modify that development agreement to allow us to build just the standard city section along that section of the road? So the amendment is really very simple. It changes a few words in the development agreement. This changes just some dimensions, going from 6 feet to 5 feet for the concrete sidewalk, going from 7 to 4.5 feet, which is our standard for the plant strip, park strip. Replacing some of there was a mow strip originally proposed because they didn't know exactly where that curb was going to fall. Now they do. So it's being replaced with a 30-inch concrete curb and gutter. And then, as indicated, there would be that change to Exhibit D, which is that picture that I showed you. This is also part of that development agreement that shows that cross section and how that works. Again, this is our city standard that's shown on the screen. It's the buffer, the landscape buffer doesn't change at all. That'll remain at 5 feet. The sidewalk would go down by a foot, and the planter area would go down by approximately 2.5 feet. So with that, this has been again reviewed by engineering and planning staff. We concur that because of that improvement that's occurred on the UDOT side, that original concern for having additional pedestrian amenities on that side of the road, on the development side of the road, is not there anymore, and we would recommend that the council approve this development agreement amendment. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Seeing that there's none, that concludes all your presentations. I appreciate you doing that and for the information shared here. So we'll go ahead and go on to our last consent item, which is to amend Title III, Chapter 3.1 of the Layton Municipal Code. And our Mr. Tracy Probert will present that information at this time.
Yes. Mayor, members of the council, we have ordinance 23-15 amending the consolidated fee schedule. There are a few changes in the fee schedule. Most relate to printing of documents, incident reports, audio recordings, and so forth. As the police and fire department reviewed those, and also the recorder's office, they felt that our fees were fairly significantly out of line with what others are charging around the state and for the cost related to providing those mostly. And so you have audio recordings that are recommended to go from 10 to 30. In the police department, incident reports from 5 to 10, fingerprinting service from 15 to 20, criminal history report from 10 to 15. On the passports, we just changed that to whatever the U.S. Postal Service rate is because we got tired of changing it every time they change theirs once a month. And there were a few things added in the parks that were more just definitions, adding Harmony Park to a place that pavilion can be rented, and also changing the name of from Amphitheater Plaza Pavilion to Kinley Plaza Pavilion. And then on the very last page of the changes, the price for streetlights, which we supply the streetlights, but the developers pay for those as part of their permitting process, and that price went up significantly, and so we've adjusted those prices based on what we pay. So, yeah, there's not a profit built into those for the city or anything, it's just a cost that we have. Are there any questions about any of those changes?
Any questions, council? Okay, very good. Well, that concludes our consent items, so I'll turn it back over to the council then to go ahead and take action on the items presented. And whoever's going to make the motion, if you could please state the ordinance. Reference. Hello?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we amend the consent items, starting with item A, ordinance 23-11. Is that two different, because we're adopting that, we're amending, but we're also adopting the International Fire Code. Is it all one? Is it all included? Okay. Item B, involving a land conveyance of insignificant value. Is that a right statement?
Insignificant parcel.
An insignificant parcel between Layton City and Britannia K and C. Brian Arave. Resolution 23-32. Item C, Resolution 23-33. Item D, Resolution 23-31. And item E, ordinance 23-15.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent items as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, there you have it. We actually have Bettina's vote as well, so it's unanimous. Okay, thank you, council. We'll now move on to our public hearing portion of our meeting, and this is actually an extended public hearing. We've had it open now, and so we're going to turn the time back over to Mr. Tracy Probert to present the amended budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023.
Thank you. So first, we'll cover 2314, amending the budget. Sorry, I didn't catch what you said as I was walking up.
No, that's good.
But every year, we're required to by ordinance, and then hold a public hearing to amend the budget for the current fiscal year that we're in that ends June 30th, 2023. A summary of the amendments that are out there in the general fund, there's $1,748,733 of appropriations of fund balance. So where we dipped into our reserve to cover some things that weren't originally anticipated during the year. Some of those major items listed in your packet of information: a new fire engine, a few overruns on Station 54, which was completed, adding security to many of the restrooms in the parks so that we can help alleviate some of the vandalism that we've been experiencing. And then also some changes to the Harmony Park contract that I believe were discussed a few months ago when we delayed some things and changed landscaping and so forth. Also salt and sand. You know, we had record winter and record amount of salt and sand used as well. So those are some of the major things that make that up. The second category in the general fund, transfer of budget appropriations to another fund, $7,133,043.75. $6 million of that is capital reserve. Back in the days of the CARES Act, we received money which helped us cover our police and fire expenditures, and that built our reserve up to a level that we needed to move some of that out of our general fund and place that into capital projects fund for future projects, which at this point have not been defined by the council. So there's no appropriation of spending those funds, but we do need to put it in a place where we can hold it until that determination is made. Another category in the general fund is related to just items that we didn't have an anticipated amount or an estimate for at the beginning of the year, $228,990. A big chunk of that's related to wildland fire monies that come in. We don't budget those up front. We just bring the revenue in and then cover the expenses once we know what they are. Police Special Services falls in that area, the Fire Academy, and then also donations that the city receives, and then just other monies that come in that are miscellaneous type revenues. They could be insurance proceeds or something like that. The last category in the general funds related to grant revenue for amounts that were unanticipated. So the ICAC grant, I've written this down about a dozen times. I don't remember what the SHSP is, State Homeland Security Program, I believe, Bulletproof Vest, and then the state asset forfeitures type grant. So a total of those is $9,386,712, remembering that $6 million of the $9 million is moving a reserve from one reserve to another reserve. So it's not actually appropriating and spending that money. In the other funds, as you can see listed in your packet, Davis Metro, $113,000, and I'm going to round these as I go down them, but of additional grant funding. The Prop 1 Fund, $211,000, additional funding for Flint Turnpocket and 2700 West projects. A new item on here, Building Services Fund. We've had to add that fund because the state legislature passed the law, and then the state auditors implementing the fact that our building permits and plan reviews now have to be tracked in their own fund. So they'll no longer be part of general revenues. They have to be in their own fund, and then I have to allocate expenses to that fund based on the people that are in Chad's department, basically in community development, and come up with a consistent way to do that. And so in order to get that in before the end of the year, when we have to do our CAFR, we needed a budget amendment to move some of the revenues and expenses out of the general fund into this new fund. Not maybe shouldn't say it in public, not something we wanted to do or necessarily agree with, but it is what it is. You have additional grant revenue in the Alcohol Enforcement Fund, a grant for the museum collection digitalization from the RAMP Fund, a small grant in the 911 Dispatch Fund, the Capital Projects Fund, 7.5 million. That's related to the capital reserve, the fire station, the fire engine, and the Harmony Park things that I already discussed out of the general fund. We have also some funding from the Emergency Medical Services Fund for that same fire engine, and also for some compensation adjustment that was made there. In the water fund, there was $862,000, most of which was related to an emergency generator grant that provided generators at the well sites so that, you know, if power goes down, we can still provide water through those generators. Then we had $148,000 in the stormwater fund for the land drain and Country Creek Estates for a truck and also forklift. And that truck and forklift were also shared with the sewer department, so there was an adjustment there. Increase in maintenance and repairs in the street lighting fund of $7,500, recognizing additional program revenue, wages and supplies in the athletic fund. It wasn't exactly $100,000, but we rounded it up because we're not done with the month yet. Excuse me. And then $59,660 in the swimming pool fund for a generator at the pool bubble, wave machine motor, and a chlorine pump. So that was the summary. Sorry, it was a little long. But those are the amendments. I don't know if there are any questions related to those for this fiscal year.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, the salt and sand overage, the fact that we had monies available, that's a good thing. The fact, I mean, when you talk about rainy day, there's a great example of being able to take care of the roads, the citizens, when, I mean, nobody forecasted what happened as far as the snow goes. And then I'm imagining also overtime and for those public works employees. And
Right.
so kudos to them. At the same time, the fiscal responsibility of the city of making sure we have these funds available for when they're needed. So thank you.
Great comment. I'd echo that as well. Anyone else? Okay.
So this is a public hearing, and staff would recommend that public comment be taken, and then ordinance 2314 amending the budget be adopted.
Okay. This is a public hearing. If we have anybody who wants to comment, you're welcome to. Okay. We can go ahead, and we do not want to close this public hearing, but Gary, we could go ahead and oh, good catch, Kim. Very good. Okay, so let me just kind of let everyone know. So we have a discussion here. We were, I was under the impression that we opened the public hearing last time when we had talked about the amendment, but apparently we didn't. So with that, then I do need to bring this back to the council and ask for an opening of the public hearing regarding the amended budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Madam Mayor, I move that we open the public hearing for ordinance 2314.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So once again, I'll entertain the fact that this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to comment, you're welcome to. Okay, seeing that there's none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council.
Madam Mayor, I move that you want me to close the public hearing or just leave it open now?
I would leave it open because that means we can then go on to item B.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2314, amending the budget for fiscal year 22 and 23.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the budget as presented. Being that this is dollar amounts, I need to do a roll call vote. And I think with that, just so Councilmember Smith Edmonton know, I will call on her last so that she can tee herself up for coming off mute. So let's start down here with Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilman Bloxham,
Yes.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
and Councilman Thomas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Smith Edmonton.
Yes.
Okay. There you have it. We have a unanimous vote on adopting the amended budget. So with that, I will then bring it back to Mr. Probert and have him go on to item B, which is to adopt the budget and property tax and compensation schedule. So,
Okay.
go ahead.
Mayor, members of the council, so we present to you tonight the budget for fiscal year 2023-2024, which begins July 1st of this current year. Some of the highlights from the budget presented in your packet, we can review those briefly. The general fund budget is just over $51 million. The total citywide budget, just over $129 million, which includes all the utility funds and so forth. It's proposed a cost of living and merit adjustment for employees based on a market survey. And also there are $2.8 million in capital equipment, $26.6 million in capital projects, which include utilities, streets, parks, dispatch, and a few others. The city property tax rate will actually decrease 3.3% due to the county taking over animal control services. Citizens will most likely notice that there will be an increase on the county side of their taxes. So, that's all right with us. Some of the major projects included in the 26.6 million, West Hillfield Road widening, which has some intergovernmental funding, Ellison Common Parks, Commons Park Shop Facilities, Gordon Avenue Secondary Water Trunk Line continues on, Public Safety Dispatch and Records Building, which has federal grant funding and general funding. Most of that project is federal grant funding, so that's good for the city there as far as funding goes. And then funding for the Fairfield booster pump replacement. Those were the major ones that were on the list as far as the most dollars. It was mentioned in the work meeting that there are a couple of modifications so that if you are to adopt this ordinance in section 4, when I prepared this, it was indicated compensation. There's compensation for statutory and appointed officers and also general employees. And the ordinance as presented to you indicated that compensation for the mayor would be adjusted. That is not part of the budget. And so the final two lines would read, compensation for elective officials will not be adjusted. In section 5, there is a date error as well, and the last sentence, fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, not 2022. So when you adopt the ordinance, my recommendation would be with those two modifications. Are there any questions related to the budget?
Any questions?
I've got one. The certified tax rate, what will that, do we receive that?
Yeah, the certified tax rate as is stated in the ordinance is 0.001221. And like I mentioned, that's 3.3% lower. They do allow us for new growth, so there was some increase for new growth, but overall 3.3% lower than the prior year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. And so if city property tax rates decrease by 3.3%, and we were thinking that we're going to be held harmless from that because that's what animal services were costing, or are we going to have some sort of shortfall in the next year?
For animal services?
Just I guess as a general matter, property tax revenues next year.
Overall revenues, if you combine those with our other sources of revenues, we should still be fine. I mean, we've obviously prepared a balanced budget. Part of that budget does use reserves, but most of the use of that reserve, I would say all of the use of that reserves is related to projects. The remainder of, the cost of living increases, merit increases for wages, and other things are covered within all of the revenue sources that we have at our disposal.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Should anyone wish to comment? Okay, seeing that there's none, I'll bring it back to the council.
Just one more question.
Sure.
Did we receive any emails, any from citizens about the budget?
About the budget, nothing. No.
Okay.
Well, that bodes well for Tracy's office and how well they do, as well as the entire city, so thank you. Okay, council, I'll bring it back to you then to go ahead and close the public hearing and take action regarding the budget.
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and adopt ordinance 23-13, which is the budget, property tax rate, and compensation schedule for elected statutory and appointed officials for 2023-2024 fiscal year, with the changes of the compensation for elected officials not being adjusted, and also the correction of the date, June 30, 2023, in section 5.
Okay, very good. That's perfect.
I second the voice from above.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved in second. Once again, I'll take a roll call vote. So with that, I'm going to start out hopefully online with Councilmember Smith Edmonton.
Aye.
Okay, Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Councilmember Bloxham,
Aye.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's a unanimous decision. Okay, that concludes our public hearing as well as our agenda for this evening. Unless anyone has any unfinished business at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and to go back into a work meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
And go back into a work meeting.
Oh, and go back into another meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right. Once again, thank you, everyone, and a big shout out and thank you to Troop 27G. I hope everyone have a good evening.